Okay team, so we're going to go through the reloading process. So we've got our corn cob media in here. I'll open this here up. Then what we have is our once fried brass. So got a couple of rounds missing, but basically I think I've already cleaned some of this, but because we're mixing with stuff that hasn't been cleaned before, we'll just put the whole lot in. So we've got around 40 rounds this here, and that stuff's definitely dirty, so we'll throw it all in. You can see slight difference here in the casings. It's about 39 or so rounds that have been fired. Righty-ho. So we'll let this go for around 3-4 hours, and then we'll filter the stuff out once that's done. So alright, so that's been on for around 4 to 5 hours. We just want to so there, the shells are nice and clean. I just basically tip them out if anything needs redone a bit longer. Just go through and just manually tip these out, clean it out, give them a good wipe down. Okay team, so we've cleaned these the other day. I was going to give them a last shake, a bit of a clean, just make sure all the cleaning agent is out of these. Get these real good wiped down, quick inspection, and so we've got around about 40 of these to go through. We're going to load around about 20 of these for our load development. Righty-ho, so we've got the last 2 casings to go, and that's us done. I'll just go back through this process shortly. And so what we've got is, I had a case here the other day, and so this is one that's already been cleaned. We've gone and sized this, and then we've gone and added a new primer to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to deprime these as well as resizing them, and then we're going to cut them to length so they are good for adding propellant to, or the primers, not the primer, the powder to, and then from there we'll seat the new bullets into here. Okay team, so we've now got our resizing dial. I set this up the other day so it's the correct depth, so whilst we resize it, at the same time it deprimes. So it's a case of just slotting this in and turning it until it locks into place, like so. We've got the shell holder already in place for the 338 Lapua Magnum, so now it's a case of lubing up the cases and going through the resizing process. Okay team, so it's really important for us now to go and lube the case, and so what we do is grab a tiny little bit and we go and lube the case. So there we go, there, just nice and lubed up. Just don't want that binding. It's a process then of just inserting it into the shell holder and then transferring that. And as you would have heard, case the primer's gone and fallen out, so we've now deprimed it. We want to take all the lube off that case, getting it ready for priming. And so now that case can go in the holder upside down, and that's ready now to go for then being primed, and then we can put powder into it. And so this part's a little bit slow, and after this we'll be trimming the cases and then going through and priming. Right, so last case we're going to go in our load development. So we only want 18 rounds, and we have 3 at different powder settings. Powder charges, which you see. There we go, so we've got one that's trimmed and primed, and so we're going to go through, prime and trim those cases back to specs before we start charging them with powder. Okay, so I've got a temporary setup here at home just between places at the moment, so I normally have this bolted down to a workbench, but we're just trying to size this, we are trying to size this down to 2.714 inch. So we've got 2.7160 at the moment. So we're going to take 2 thou off that, so just make some minor adjustments. .7145, so just make a very small tweak. Hopefully now 2.714, so that's sized perfectly. When we go through now and resize the rest of these, we won't measure these in between. We'll just go ahead and size them. Just want the same amount of pressure so we're not taking any extra material off the end, and then after this we'll go and deburr it, put a chamfer on it. And that'll be ready for the next stage, which is going to be priming. Almost finished this next stage, which is the deburring, so I just make sure that around the edges here there's no burrs left. It's also a very neat fit into the chamber, so you want to make sure that it's got a nice chamfer on it, but equally so all the burrs are gone. Right, last one. So these are all sized or trimmed down to 2.714 inch. All within about half a thou. There's a couple that's 1 thou out, but it's all been trimmed down. So at the moment in New Zealand we've got quite a shortage of primers, and so the reloading book calls for the 215 primers, so we can leave these other primers here. I've got for the 338. So pretty much from now on we're going to try and keep everything the same. We've got the ability to load 200 primers, so for starters we're going to test out the A-Tips. We're going to see how that goes downrange for accuracy, see how the barrel likes it, but then also see the performance on a deer. If that doesn't work to the standard we require, then we'll switch back to, we'll test the 270 or 275 grain ELDX rounds and see how they go. So once we've got our primers into our hand loading tool, it's a case then of getting primer ready to go from there. Set it properly, making sure we don't look down the hole when we depress it, and just gently squeeze it up in all the way home. From there we've got our primer seated, and it should not be proud. It's a case now of repeating the process, just making sure that we look after our eyes, we're not putting ourselves at risk by looking down at the primer in case it detonates. Right, with the A-Tip rounds, they are sequential rounds off the press, so we actually need to get them clean. They haven't been cleaned properly, so I'll clean 3 of these. These should, if I was to weigh them, would be identical weight. So downrange performance, these will be exactly the same as long as the powder measurements are the same. So obviously, as indication, it's a very big projectile that's going down range, very good BCs. It is actually designed as a target round, but I'm already using match rounds and find them very good downrange. So what we'll do is we'll load those 3 to the correct setting depth. We'll just back off the setting depth a bit and then we'll adjust from there. Okay, good morning. So back into reloading again. We've prepped the cases last night. We've adjusted the dispenser. And all we now do is start throwing some charges. Okay, so we've got 85.1 and I just prefer just to top this up with a trickler. We can fine tune the throwing of the powder, but I just don't find it that good, so I just prefer just to take my time, just go through and throw a couple of grains at a time till we get to 86.4, which is our first load development. So it's a little bit higher than the starting load, but we're not going to start right at the start. Right, so there we go there, 86.4 grains. And from here, the funnel on, just taking our time, making sure that we're getting all the powder in, we're not dropping anything out. Give a wee tap, and that's good to go. That should return back to 0. So we'll repeat that process another 3 times, and then from there we'll set these cartridges across. I've got them some bags here ready to put them in, so we'll just line the bags to the loads, and then from there we'll get into ready to seat the bullets. Just stop there. Okay, so I just made a very fine adjustment to the dispenser. And 86.4, nice. This is our 3rd one with throwing the powder charge for loading up the cartridge. Make sure that comes back to 0, nice. And that's the 3rd one done for that load. So we're going to only run 3 cases per load development, and so we'll have around 18 rounds. We'll have some nice tight groupings, and once the groupings tighten right up, then that'll be us for our preferred node, and then from there we'll fine tune with another load. So at the moment I'm doing 0.9 of a grain increments, and once we get to a sort of first tight grouping, we'll then reload again. We'll fire the whole 18 rounds and see what they do, looking for signs of overpressure. But what we won't be doing is going up to a compressed load, so we'll just make sure that we keep this as a non-compressed load at this stage, unless we have to go higher. Okay, next load is 87.3. Just start slowing it down. There we go there. So we'll select around. Oops, 87.4. So we'll just got to back that off just 1 grain. .3, so there we go. Just make sure that returns back to 0, nice. Here's our next one. You see 86.5. 87. 87.2. 87.3, nice. We tap, so I've got blockage there. Minor adjustments, it was 87, 87.1. 87.3, 87.4, a little bit too much just near that time, so we'll just throw that whole load back. It's better to throw a whole new load as to tipping something up. 86.7, 87.1, 0.2, 0.3. Right. Okay, that's our second batch done. Righty-ho, so we've got all our cases loaded, so from lowest charge, which is 86.4 up to 90.9. I could have gone up to almost 92, that's the maximum. However, I want to be very careful with the powder charges, making sure we're not getting over pressurization. So we could have started off another 4 or 5 steps lower than this, or charge weights lower, but we want to be very careful that that we're trying to get some nodes, but also not going too slow. So the lowest load at 83 grains is just under 2,400 foot-pounds. Oh, sorry, foot per second. At the maximum, so just below the maximum up here is 2,600 foot per second. Ideally we want around 2,700, but in the day it isn't about chasing feet per second, it's about the accuracy. So perfect world would be 1/4 inch MOA. Be wrapped if we get 1/2 inch MOA out of this. I realise it's not, what I'm about to load with next, the A-Tip match, is not a hunting bullet, but I'm currently using match ammo. And it's actually performing pretty good. So we're going to give this a trial. If it's no good, then it's a bit of fun for load development, and also get my boy and girl out shooting the big gun. So we are loading a 338 Lapua Magnum. Some of these loads are going to be compressed, so we need to be a bit careful, and we're going to load them to the same overall length as our current rounds. So we'll see what happens, and then another day we need to get a chronograph and then head out into the range. Possibly just for starters, we're just going to do a shoot and look at accuracy, get the smallest group we can, hopefully get into a good node fairly early on. Obviously these charge weights do take a lot of powder, but look, that's the breaks when you run larger caliber weapons. We're currently running a 285 grain match bullet, and yeah, we are deer hunting, but I find the match bullets quite good. So we're going to test out the A-tips. If they don't work, then we will be moving through to the LDX rounds. So what we want to do here is we want to measure the overall length. So we've got 3.624. So what we're going to do is we're going to reload to that. It's 3.624. Let's do a couple checks. Those rounds. 3.623. 3.622. So just keep going until we get a couple of accurate accurate measurements. It's just missed there. 3.623, 3.623. Okay, so we'll load to 3.623. It's the same distance off the lens. We'll see how those blocks run at these distances. Yeah, I forgot to start recording for starters, but so we've loaded the shell casing in there. What we're going through now is just getting the seam depths correct. So after 3.623 inch. So 3.638, so we'll just make a small adjustment here. What we're looking for is making sure that we don't have any mushrooming on the shoulder like I had the other day. Right, so we've got 8 thou to lose. Just a little bit fiddly for started again down to the correct distance, so another 4 thou. Then it'll be a case of once all these are loaded for us to find a day that's got little to no wind. 3.625. .623, so brilliant. Recheck that one. One thou difference, we'll just leave that as is at the moment, just load the rest of these, fine tune these shortly. This is such a big shell, big projectile, to make sure that goes all the way up. So that's 1 thou difference, so that's all within QE. So I'll just load the rest of these and we'll show you the final products once they're fully loaded. Okay team, so there's our load development done. So we've got from 86.4 through to 90.9. It does start a little bit lower, the lower load development, but we do want the upper end of speed. So I think up here we've got around about 2500 foot per second, so not as fast as what we're running with the match MO, but we'll see what groupings we get with these, and then hopefully we get into a node. Otherwise we will go up into a compressed load one higher, and if we have to we'll load lower, but if we get a grouping then effectively we'll dial in from there. We'll reload some of the once fired brass that we've still got to load. We'll process in its entirety, and then we'll keep this brass aside as second fired brass. So yeah, we'll post up hopefully the shooting at the end of this video, and so it's one whole segment, and we'll show you shooting downrange. And we won't have a chronograph by that stage, but once obviously we get a good grouping, we'll reload some more ammunition with 0.3 grain difference, and then shoot that. We'll load up a batch at that, and then we get the ballistic data. We'll either borrow a chronograph or go buy a chronograph and get the gun dialed right in So realistically for the 338 running the XTR2 scope, that's just going to be another extra couple clicks on the elevation, so it's not a big deal, but what will ultimately count is whether or not the barrel likes the A-tips and then how well the A-tips perform on animals. If they just pinhole through the animal and don't cause a decent wound cavity, then we'll switch to the ELDX and do a new low development with the same powder.